Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we're going to talk about fighting against or standing up for ourselves and the difference between the two actions and how to tell which one we're doing. Am I standing up for myself or am I fighting against something? Because those are two very distinct energies. But when you're in the middle of the action, sometimes you really have to pull back and see which one am I doing. Because fighting against is a very human aspect, ego action. Standing up for ourselves is more how we start to say no more to things that are not okay in our world anymore, how we start standing up for ourselves and to get to more soul aligned realities. And that doesn't mean that everyone we go to, the next one we go to after that one will be soul aligned. But we're starting to say no to some very distorted ones. Because anytime we get into this fight or flight kind of mentality, we get our back against the wall on certain things, that's when we start to really unravel realities. And I say we start to unravel them because that's really what we're doing. The minute we stop participating in them in the way we had participated in them, they're going to unravel. And there's a lot of things about that we don't really like. We don't like when they start to unravel in the beginning, because as soon as they start to unravel, then we have to start doing something else, right? The reality is going to come to an end, because the purpose of that reality was for us to say no more. Every reality we've created in our human aspect gets us to say no more. And the minute we say no more, because of the distortion in it, the reality does start to unravel. But that was the point of the reality. I did a couple videos, I don't know, some time ago, where we started to talk about, that was the purpose of it. And the minute we stand up for ourselves, then the whole reality starts to go. But we want to be able to have a different role in the reality and expect it to stay the same. And that's when we kind of trip ourselves up. So when we start picking these realities apart, and normally what happens is we get our back to the wall and we get mad. We're tired of compromising. We're tired of doing the same thing. And when nothing's changing in the reality, we're pissed off we're in the reality. We're pissed off we've compromised so much to be in the reality, whichever way we have compromised. We're just not happy with it. And we want it to be done, in one way or the other. So we explode. At least we want it to be done in that moment. So we kind of will explode. And what are we doing? Am I standing up for myself or am I trying to fight against something? These energies, the act of standing up for ourselves, let's start with that one. When we start to stand up for ourselves, we get into a mode of, and I know I've said this before, it's a conscious act, usually still from an unconscious program. We're still running an unconscious program, we're running a victim energy program. We're still thinking that a lot of the times that it's everyone else's fault. We're looking exterior for the blame. We're going to stand up for ourselves. We're going to start to stand in our power, but we're still not putting the onus so much on ourselves yet, right? But we are making a conscious act to do that. I'm making a conscious decision to say, this is not okay. Even if it's not for my highest place yet, because I haven't found that place yet. This is just a stepping stone to finding those higher places. But this is me saying, this is not okay. This shit's a mess. I don't know what the next one's going to be, but this one is not okay anymore. For whatever reasons, it's not okay for us. We have gotten ourselves into so many realities from our human aspect. They all have to go, be reworked, be realigned, but majority of them will go. And that's not what a lot of people like to hear. A lot of people like to hear that they can all stay and everything's going to stay the same, but we'll just have fame, money, and complete happiness, but everything else stays the same. But it doesn't work like that, because money, fame, happiness, success are not things the soul cares about. They're still human wants. They're still what our human aspect strives for. So when we start to try to pick these energies apart, what is the goal of what you're trying to get to? Are we standing up for ourselves because we want something out of it? What is are we looking for an external reason, to do a lot of these things? Are we looking outside? for the reason? Are we starting to look inside to see, look what I created? In the beginning, it's going to be harder to see this kind of stuff. But you're going to find that when you start to stand up for yourself, there is a choice there, right? You're making that conscious choice to stand up. You're making that conscious choice to say no more. When we start fighting against something, it's a very draining sense to that, because we're almost, and it doesn't even matter what we're fighting against. It's a drain to our energy to fight against it. Whereas on the opposite side, when we stand up for ourselves, it's a drain not to at that point, because we've let it go so long. We've let it go so far that if we don't stand up for ourselves, we feel anyway, that we're going to wash away with the reality. Like there's no more. I can't say anything else. I can't do anything else. I have no more energy for the thing. I literally just have to say something, because the reality is so miserable. When we start to fight against something, you're going to feel that the fight part is even more exhausting than even being in the reality, because we're taking so much energy to fight against whatever is happening. Normally when we start fighting against, we're fighting against the closeout of something. We're fighting against our ending to something, our swan song in something. And that doesn't mean the reality won't continue without us. Now, in a sense, if it's not in our reality, it doesn't matter because it doesn't exist, right? But there's a lot of things that will happen along the way when we're in these energies and we're starting to realign things. And when we're embodying in more of our soul, when we're embodying in more of our light, and we start to have consciousness, and we get to that conscious choice, maybe still from an unconscious program, but still a conscious choice. And then we're going to move up one to then higher consciousness, but we have to start somewhere. Normally I find I'm fighting against something that I don't want to leave. I'm fighting against maybe even the role I'm playing in the reality. I don't want that role to change. I want to be able to fight against it ending. I want to be able to fight against this reality pittering out, because I don't want it to pitter out. Even though I don't like my role in the reality. And I might want to try to change my role within the reality, but keep it going. Is it still feeding it? Is the fighting against it still feeding the reality? Are you fighting against the inevitable here? Is there no way out of this? Go back to how we started the realities to begin with. What's our energy as to why we're here? None of these human realities were started from a pure place. They're not designed for that. No, they were never designed for that. Because if they're designed for that, we don't learn anything. They're designed to show us where we are compromising. They're designed to get us to compromise. No matter why the original reason is we compromise. That's what they're designed to do. They're not designed for anything else. So the more we really start to look into what we're doing, am I fighting against? Am I standing up for myself? It's a thin line. It's such a slight line in the beginning. I don't really think you can tell. You'll start to be able to tell later on. You'll be able to look back and see, well, I was really kind of fighting against that ending. It was draining me because I didn't want it to end. But I didn't want it to continue either. We're trying to kind of rebuild it from the inside when that starts to happen. And we learn after trying to do that, we can't rebuild them from the inside. We have to disconnect from the external reality. We have to disconnect from that reality and go build something else. Disconnecting from the collectives. We talk a lot about disconnecting from the collectives. You can try to fight within the collectives, and there are some people that do that because it's their role to do that. They're working through programming. They're getting their energy out in a sense. They're working through their own distortions in that sense, but they're still fighting against. And we're really not getting anywhere when we do that. Not in the long term, because we're not going to change. It's more we have ego going against ego in a sense. You're not going to change the reality that way. Because the purpose of the reality was one thing. When you start to fight against the purpose of the reality just is going to crumble. Because you can't fight against that. You can just disconnect from the reality. Standing up for ourselves is that first conscious act we start to do, because the majority We never stand up for ourselves. Human aspects in general, we do not stand up for ourselves. We don't allow ourselves just to be that strong. We don't allow ourselves to be that powerful. We kind of get swept up in the realities, because as long as we're not standing up for ourselves, then we're not making choices. Then we're not responsible for our choices. Our human aspect always wants to be able to say someone else is responsible. That's how the game is played. That's how the human game is played. It's somebody else's fault. Somebody else is responsible. And you see that from all the collectives. All the collectives that are really rooted in that us against them. It's it's the polarization of the planet, in a sense. There's, this is not right, this is okay, this is that, to get everyone to start fighting with everybody else. So you really don't look at the inherent problems that are really happening throughout all the collectives, because everything's very distracting. So when you start to pull yourself out of these realities, whether it's kind of fighting against the inevitable of us not being able to participate anymore, and when we start to fight against the inevitable, there's going to be so much pushback. And it's not that you won't have pushback when you stand up for yourself. But normally for me, when I just stood up for myself in a relationship, in any of the realities I had, where I felt like there was a lot of disrespect going on, was I still seeing victim energy in it? Yes, I was. Now I don't feel the need to stand up for myself anymore, because I don't let anything get to that space. We only have to stand up for ourselves when we let it get to that disrespectful place. I don't get there anymore. But it took years of not having realities where we don't even get to disrespect. That's not even allowed. Those realities are stopped way before that. I've said many times, if we're raising voices, it's already out of alignment. You don't have to ask at that point, gee, is this out of alignment? No, it's already out of alignment. And it's been out of alignment for a long time. It has not been okay for a very long time. Now, was it aligned with something? Yes. Was it aligned with your human template? Yes. Was it aligned with your soul template? No. But it was aligned with something. All the realities are aligned with something. It's either going to be aligned with our human aspect, or it's going to be aligned with our soul aspects. And we have a lot of soul aspects and a lot of different versions of our human aspect. But just for this, we're going to keep it pretty simple, and we're just going to call it the two. It's aligned with something. It might not be aligned with our highest, but it's aligned with something. So the more we try to, let me go back and rephrase this. When I was standing up for myself, the reality crumbled very quickly. There's usually not a lot of pushback. Because as soon as I did that, the reality no longer had a purpose. It was done. The people were done. It didn't matter anymore. None of it mattered anymore. The whole reality just collapsed. And I didn't hear from the people anymore, because the job was done. The contract was fulfilled. The role that they're playing, I'm going to be disrespectful until you don't say no more. And then I have no purpose anymore. Can I come back in another reality, another timeline? Perhaps, maybe not. This reality's now run out of time. The timeline's done. You completed the task, like in a video game. It's been done. And it just fades away. Where when I was really trying to fight against something, there was so much agony in that. There's so much exhaustion in that. Because you're fighting against the inevitable. You're trying to play a role you're not supposed to play. You're trying to be in realities you're not supposed to stay in anymore. You're trying to take on a role that's not yours to take on. You're trying to perhaps be disrespectful to other people in the reality because you don't think they can handle their reality. So we're trying to fight against all the endings. We're trying to fight against all the things that we don't like what someone else is doing. Look at it in a different way. Are we fighting against what we're doing? Are we fighting against what somebody else is doing? Are we not happy with what somebody else is doing? Do we want them to do it our way? Are we pissed they're not doing it our way? So we're going to fight against that. Even the word fight, you can just feel when you say the word how your body feels. Look how your body feels. Now, when you first stand up for yourself, your body's not going to feel great. It's going to feel kind of scary. And that's the point of that. We got to walk through that fear. But it's going to have a different after effect. Once you stand up for yourself, you're going to feel like, okay, I stood up for myself. There might still be sadness when the reality goes. I still grieve some realities, shocked at how fast they would go. But I didn't have the exhaustion of fight. to keep a dog in the race where I really don't need a dog in that race. I really don't need to be in this anymore. I just don't want it to end. It is sad for me. I want to take on a different role, a role I don't have here, a role that I can't take on because I've got something else I have to go do. So your universe is almost just saying, no, 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 no. It's not just the other people. It's yourself saying it. No, 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 no. But we keep trying to make it work. Fighting against what's not aligned. Trying so hard. And trying is the word of that is what we learn after many attempts at that. That is for the suckers, in a sense. That is for our human aspect. Trying is for the human aspect. The more we try to align it and try and it's not working, eventually we have to realize it's just not supposed to be. And sometimes we don't know why till a long time later. Sometimes we know immediately after we stop trying to be in it. We stop fighting against the inevitable, fighting against ourselves. So I'm going to leave it there. Start really pulling it apart. Start really looking at it. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? Do I have what's my story? The story's going to tell you a lot about which one you're doing. Is this for me to say this is not okay? Or am I standing up for, 5 other people who aren't speaking for themselves? Am I trying to take on too much? Am I trying to fight against what someone else has created because they now don't want to be in there to align it themselves? Do I think they're not capable of aligning it themselves? What's going on? What's my story? Because your story is where the answer is. Because if you have no emotion around it, then there's no story. You don't care anymore. You'll be surprised when you pull out of a lot of these things and you go back and look at them. There's no story anymore. It just wasn't aligned. That was it. There's no emotion around it anymore because we grieved the emotion out. And if we haven't, we will. If you haven't got to the point where, oh, yeah, that happened, and you can barely remember it, and if you can maybe bring it in because you need to tell the story for someone else that might assist, but there's no emotion around it, then we haven't grieved it enough. We haven't resolved it enough. But you'll still get insights into it on which one we're doing. Which one are we beating our head against the wall? Or are we just trying to stand up for ourselves and then let the chips fall? Or we don't like where the chips fall. We can't regret our action just because someone else didn't respond the way we wanted them to. We can't fight for the response we wanted because we didn't get it. We got the proper one. In that moment, the one we got was the one aligned. What was it aligned to? We might not know that right away. Normally, in the beginning, we don't. But there are first steps we take. We just have to see when we are going to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stand in my power, even if we just have a little teeny bit in the moment. Because if we don't stand in our power, we're going to find that our universe is going to keep crunching us more and more till we learn to do that. That's a very big part of our ascension process, to be able to take our power back. And the more we say, no, 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 our universe is going to push us harder and harder and harder. It's going to get more distorted and rougher and rougher and rougher until we completely crack and explode. Because that's how harsh the reality has to get. Because the more we say, no, I'm not going to do it, the harsher it's going to get for us to force us to do it. Because that's the point. So we're causing that. Every time we say it's just getting rougher and rougher, because we're making it get rougher and rougher. Because our universe is thinking, okay, if that's not going to do it, I'm going to break you. Because that's the only way you're going to stand up for yourself. And if I don't break you, then, if you keep saying, oh yeah, that's fine. No, that's okay. No, it's fine. Don't worry about that. You can treat me like that. That doesn't matter. The more you do that, the worse it gets. And the worse it gets. And the worse it gets. Until all of a sudden, there's nothing else left but just that complete distortion. And we crack. We will literally crack. We'll explode because we have let ourselves get pushed to that because we've allowed it to get to that. So, okay. Keep practicing the art of intuition.